If you're a health or a life coach who wants to create more recurring income in your business so that you don't have to start your months at zero, then this is the episode of the show for you. I'm going to share my experience in my business of how I've changed my own situation around so that I now have 12 months of sustainable cash flow in place. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health and life coaches get more clients, grow their businesses and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show, we're talking all about how do we create sustainable cash flow in our businesses so that we don't have to start each month at zero. This is a bit of my own kind of personal journey around this topic because I was a few years ago in a situation where I would regularly be starting a month at zero, and that did not feel good to my nervous system. It did not feel financially safe. It was really stressful, and it's been something that I've worked on for a long period of time. And I want to share the things that I've done that have completely shifted that situation. So now I've got a really long-term cash flow in place. My business has just completely changed how it feels to run and be in. It feels so much gentler on my nervous system knowing that I've got this cash flow in place. And I just want to share some of the things that changed for me when it comes to actually creating this shift in my business so that you can hopefully take some tips and ideas and put them into practice in your own. So the first thing that I did was completely review my business model. This was a really foundational, pivotal thing for me to do because I was basically putting my energy into offers that on paper made sense in my brain, but actually in reality just weren't doing what I thought they would do. So one of the first things that I did was I closed a low-cost membership that was bringing in, about £250 a month, which was great because I wasn't technically starting at zero, but actually the energy that I was putting into trying to maintain that, and because of the way that I was selling it, which is another element of the shifts that I've made to my business plan, because it was always open, there was just no kind of like real impetus to get people in. You can dig into all sorts of reasons why this offer wasn't necessarily working for me, but ultimately closing that down and kind of like removing that as a place that I had to put my energy was a really, really big shift. I also at this point had my 6-month group program. I also had one-to-one mentoring program, and I was doing design work. And I had to really take a long, hard look at everything that I was doing and how much time and effort I was putting into things. And what I kind of discovered was the brand and website work, I was vastly undercharging for what I was actually having to deliver on that. So I made some big changes to that. I also kind of just didn't want to do that as much. I still have openings and I've still got a couple of clients who I'm doing design work for, but that's the max that I'm doing at the moment. So having that shift was really important, and actually like charging appropriately for that kind of time heavy work was a really, really big shift. And I also increased my one-to-one mentoring prices too. The biggest shift came with the group program, which I have kind of touched on a little bit in the show before, but changing the way that I had Wholehearted Business set up, which I'm going to come on to in a second, that was really the big game changer that has shifted a lot. That's kind of been like the thing that's kicked off the shifts in my cash flow, to be honest. So looking at it from this point of view was like, in kind of looking at it as a whole business model was really important. If that's something that you want to do, if you want to kind of get to grips with what your business model looks like, and your business model is essentially the things that you're selling and the way in which you're selling them and how the numbers all add up, then do go and check out my free profitable business training. You can check that out. It will explain what I mean by a profitable business model. But that was the foundational thing, was really understanding how these things put together and how the numbers all added up, because actually, if I was being really honest, at that point they didn't. So making these changes really, really helped. Another thing that I did alongside this with my one-to-one mentoring is just made sure that I had long-term payment plans in place. I feel that this solved a couple of issues in terms of it made my services really accessible for people in terms of dividing the payments up, but it also again gave me that cash flow. So for my longest one-to-one mentoring program, the payments run over 8 months, and that's again a significant amount of cash flow when you kind of span that out. So it was all these kind of little changes that have really, really helped, but the big one was the group program. So unlike what most coaches talk about in their businesses, where they take a group program that was in a launch model to an evergreen model, I did the reverse, and it worked so much better. So usually the story that people tell at this point is, oh, I changed my group program to being an evergreen so that people can join at any time. I did the reverse, and this has made a huge difference for me personally. Like, this is just my experience, but having a group program that I'll actually do launches for, I've just had so many more people join that program. I also made some other changes. I'm going to talk all about this in next week's episode because I'm really excited to talk a bit more about how this particular, what I call a group membership hybrid works and why it is so good for your cash flow. So do check out that episode of the show next week if you want to understand a bit more about how that looks, because I think that as a model of delivery, as an offer, it ticks so many boxes. And I've actually ran something similar to this as a health coach as well. So it's not just about being something for business to business. I have run it successfully before as a health coach. So I'm really excited to talk about that next week, and I will share a lot more about that then. Another big shift that really helped me create more sustainable cash flow was to really get smart with my marketing. So a couple of years ago, I was kind of blogging fairly regularly. You know, I was doing the email marketing thing, I was posting on Instagram, I was doing all that kind of stuff. But let me tell you, everything shifted when I started the Wholehearted Business Show. It has been the single most transformative thing I have done in my business is this show that you are listening to, watching right now, or possibly, reading the blog version. That has just changed everything. And now when I get clients, they are always citing, like, I found you on YouTube, I found you on Google. Like, that has been such a massive shift, has been starting this show and showing up on a really consistent basis in places where new people can find me. And, I'm not hitting like huge numbers in terms of like the views on this content or the listens or anything, but it has completely shifted like the flow of people, like the flow of clients. And again, with recurring income, one half of the equation is the offers that you have and the way that they are set up to be delivered. That's one half of the equation that is going to help you with recurring income. The other half is that you have to have a sustainable flow of new people finding you. And this, for me, has been the thing that has made all the difference. So actually having a really effective, like, core marketing strategy in place has been a total game changer. Where I'm at now is I'm starting to amplify that and double down on that with some ads. So I'm kind of adding to this with a few ads, but ultimately this is the core thing that I show up and do week in, week out. And it is the thing that has just completely shifted so many things in my business, completely shifted it. So yeah, I love this show, and it's just made such a positive difference to my business in terms of cash flow. Part of why this works is because it's a place where I get to show up and it's consistent. I am kind of doing that whole, if you want to break it down, it's that whole authority in your niche thing. But actually, I think it's more than that. And what it's been for me is, I can sit here like on the 160 something episode that this one is and think I have recorded 160 odd episodes of a show talking about running a health or life coaching business. Like, I know my shit. I have done this for 160 episodes and I know what I'm putting out there is good. And that has created a shift in my confidence that I think does come through in the way that you operate your business. I'm going to come on to some of that stuff in a minute, but like, that is such a massive shift. So this show works in so many different ways. It's like that consistency, it's building the know, like, and trust stuff, but it's also, for me, it's been a big confidence booster as well. Another really, really big shift has been in the way that I manage my money and think about things around my prices. I kind of touched on this a little bit when I was talking about the business model stuff at the start, but really kind of, first of all, like, putting my big girl pants on around money management and looking at my cash flow and being really diligent about what that looks like. So I use my cash flow spreadsheet. You can get hold of that in my powerful pricing workshop if you want to grab that. That also talks all about the different ways that you can approach pricing, but using that cash flow spreadsheet really religiously. I mean, I do work with an accountant and he kind of takes the bird's eye view of stuff, but on a day-to-day basis, I manage everything with my cash flow. So being able to see that and actually being able to see how much that has changed year on year is just amazing. Like, to see the difference in the numbers at the bottom of the screen, like, it's really, really great. So I use that diligently to track every penny that kind of comes in and out. And I always know where I'm at in terms of how much of that cash flow I've got. And again, that feeling of financial safety, like, I can look at my cash flow spreadsheet now and see, I have got plenty of money coming into my business to pay myself, to pay my VA, to pay my expenses, to cover everything. That is kind of stacked up to come in over the next few months. And there's no reason why that will not come in, which I'll get onto. But it's really, really exciting to be able to see that. So part of it is the cash flow spreadsheet, but also part of it is how I relate around money and pricing. I still sometimes think there's probably space for me to increase prices. I still tend to have a tendency to undercharge compared to, I think, some other coaches. But for me, I think I've made some really, really big leaps ahead, and I'm certainly not afraid to nudge prices up over time. And that has just been like an evolvement. And I think for me, and I'm going to come on to the next point, which is heavily linked into this, but feeling safe to be able to increase my prices over time and feel confident to do that. Again, it links back into that confidence that I was talking about in terms of showing up and doing the show consistently. Like all of these things kind of add up as well. And then finally, I did the money mindset work in a big way. Like I really dug underneath some of the stuff that I'd been carrying around money and beliefs. So for me, there were some really key things connected to this. There was a lot of bitterness around some negative consequences of the financial stuff that happened in 2008. So without getting too far into it, basically, like we lost a lot of money on a property that we had at the time. Like I think a lot of people did. But I think because of the type of property it was, it's never increased in value since. So we lost a lot of money. There was like a 10-year period where when we could have been accruing assets, we just had nothing at the end and actually lost money. And I think I was holding on to a lot of bitterness and anger about that. So being able to let that go was a big part of like healing my money story. But there was also a little bit of wanting to be saved. So I kind of had this thing, I think I was kind of in this position where I was bouncing around a lot in my kind of income flow. So I would things would be okay, and then I would be like, oh shit, so like the shit's gonna hit the fan, I have to do something quickly, or I have to kind of go out there and try and find someone who's going to save me. And what really shifted things for me was taking this radical responsibility for myself. Now I'm going to talk about, there's an episode of the show coming down the line where I'm talking a bit about manifestation in your coaching business. I'm planning out some episodes and they're going to be so good. But something for me, and bearing in mind that I do have the privileges of being a white heterosexual woman in a country that, I'm not persecuted in, all that kind of stuff, but taking radical personal responsibility for where I am and for where I want to get to has been a total game changer, because I think consciously or subconsciously, I was kind of in this position of waiting for other people to come in and fix my situation or come in and make things easier. So when I really fully took personal responsibility for all of the stuff in my life, the good and the bad, that just created a huge shift. So like I say, I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a future episode of the show that I've got planned around manifestation. But just that process of like really digging into these stories and kind of noticing the ways in which they were coming up, noticing the patterns that I had around money, and kind of just starting to, like I said, that the biggest thing is just this, like, no one else is responsible for my financial situation but me. Like, I make this what it is. It's up to me to change it. And that was such a game changer, because I just stopped. It just completely shifted the way that I related to everything. It made such a huge difference. So doing that money mindset work and journaling through it and finding resources, again, stuff that I'll talk about later on. And I'm still not where I want to be in terms of, I talked about this, I think at the start of the year, in terms of like what my financial goals are for the business. And I've had a similar goal for a while, haven't hit it. Definitely seeing, positive movement towards that. And I do feel like this year is going to be very, very different. But I've still got a long way to go. I'm not like by any means kind of like in the exact place that I want to be, but so much has shifted. It's unbelievable. And that has been a major thing for me, is just that kind of change. So yeah, money mindset work, kind of just digging into all that stuff, has been amazing. There was also a big part of this, which is around financial safety. And I've done a whole episode of the show around financial safety. I will link to that. Do go and check that out, where I've talked all about creating financial safety in your business. I think something connected to this is, you can't always place your financial safety in your business. I think that it's maybe also healthy to create some financial safety outside of your business. So yes, your business plays a big part in it, but also your personal financial world, things like budgeting, things like investing, like that plays a part. So that's something that I've become more aware of, is not trying to dump all of my financial safety eggs into the business basket, and actually like look at other ways that can be grown and developed and nurtured outside of the business too. But also another part of this kind of feeling of financial safety is around self-trust. And I'm in the place now where I've been running my business now for 12 years, technically over 12 years really, but I trust my ability to make money when I need to. I trust my ability to have skills and knowledge that I can offer people in exchange for money. I trust that in myself. That's another big game changer, actually looking at my kind of track record, if you like, and thinking, you know, I'm still here 12 years later, and I've been through lots of ups and downs in business, but I'm still here and I still know how to do this thing. So that self-trust is a really, really big part of that kind of money mindset equation as well, and that financial safety equation too. So like I said, you know, a couple of years ago, I was regularly at the point of dipping into my business overdraft. I was regularly having like mini panics about my cash flow. I was regularly starting months at zero. And it's these changes that I've made that, like I say, I feel have made such a significant difference to how my cash flow looks now, which basically means I've got 12 months of cash flow kind of all spanning out in front of me. It feels really, really good to have that in place, to know that I've got a good amount of money, that all my tax bills are paid, that, you know, I've got all of this like income kind of stacked up and coming in, and it just feels like such a nicer way to run my business. And it is these things that have made a big difference. So like I say, tune in next week. I'm going to talk all about the group program membership hybrid model that has worked so well for me, especially when it comes to cash flow. I'm going to talk a bit more about that. And also further on, I'm going to be talking about manifestation, and that really links into the money mindset stuff too. As I mentioned as well, if you want to dive into this, my free training on how to create a profitable business model, that is a great one to check out, because that is so foundational to everything that I've been talking about today. And also my powerful pricing workshop, that's a good one to check out if you want to get hold of my cash flow spreadsheet. As always, guys, I really hope this has been helpful. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. If you're listening on the podcast, you can always DM me on Instagram. I'm at wholeheartedlylaura, and I will happily respond to any questions, any thoughts that you've got. It's always lovely to hear from you guys. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.